Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus visionary Joe Edelman.
That's me. Hey, gang. Thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and for the next 90 minutes and for all good times, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photographs. So before we get going, please do me a solid. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live here on YouTube right now. You know, if I could get each of you to let just one photographer friend know each week, we would have thousands of followers. But anyway, you know the fastest way to get the word out is to hit that share button right below the video down there, or you can share out the link tog.chat/live. Now, we have sound issues. That's not good, guys. So, you know what? Let's do this. Tell you what, I don't have bad sound, so bear with me a second. Let's make a switch here. Tell me if you're getting good sound now. I'm going to wait for a response, so I'm just bringing in a different mic. You guys let me know if that's any better. How's that? Sound is better. Cool. All right. Thank you. Don't know what was up with that, but hey, we'll work with this mic. There's always a backup in place. So anyway, all you missed was me saying, hey, it's me. But please take a minute. Let people know that we are streaming right now live, okay? You can either hit that share button right down below, or I just pasted the link in the chat window. Go ahead, copy that, paste it. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest way to get the word out. And as always, we've got people in here from all over the world, so please sign in. Tell me you're here. Tell me where you're from. I've seen Alex, Malcolm, I know is right down the road. We've got people here from Italy, Nick's in Maryland. I've got Roderick down in Florida, Robert down in Texas, Lynn from New York is here. Ian's in the UK, just for Lynn. Oh, there you go. Okay, so James in Milford, PA. That's a long story. We're not going to go there tonight. John in Watford, England. Sorry, I got KZ down in South Florida. Pateo in Western Switzerland. Cool. Really is cool. Thank you guys for spending this time with me and checking in. I always look forward to our discussions and the questions that you're going to have, and I will do my best, as always, to answer all of them in the next 90 minutes. So let's dive in. A couple things, just a really quick update on my schedule and stuff that's coming up. If you are near me in southeastern Pennsylvania, I would hope that this Friday night, I might get to meet you at Cardinal Camera. Cardinal Camera is where it all started for me in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. It literally is. It's the store. Different location, but it is the store where I purchased my very first camera ever in 1971. And the current owner of the store is the son of the gentleman that I purchased my camera from. So it's going to be pretty cool. They're having a big event this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, tent sale in the parking lot, all kinds of demos, and they're even having some of the Philadelphia Phillies stars from years past come in to do autograph signings, all that kind of stuff. So it should be a lot of fun. And then Saturday, big event. Saturday, I'm up in Fairfield, New Jersey at Unique Photo for the Unique Photo Expo. So I hope to see a lot of you up there. So, you know, we're talking like right outside of New York City, northern Jersey. We're going to be doing a demo with all the fun fashion portraiture stuff that I do. There may be even some wet cameras involved before we're done with that one. And then in a couple weeks, I'll be out in Michigan, Holland, Michigan, for the Southwest Michigan Camera Club Council event. That's the 26th and 27th. And then in August 10th, Austin, Texas at Precision Camera, and in September 7th and 8th, Berkeley, California, and then September 14th, back to Manhattan in New York, and then September 25th, Charlotte, North Carolina for a big event there, And then, of course, October, the end of October, it's Photo Plus. So hopefully I'm going to get to meet a lot of you guys in the course of these travels. Please keep an eye on the schedule. You can do a couple things. You can subscribe to my email newsletter, and that way you'll get updates every time I post new stuff. Or at the bottom of the schedule, whoops, the button's missing. There's supposed to be a subscribe button there. It's not there, but we'll fix that. So you can click this link, sign up for my email newsletter. That way you'll get notified, okay? All right, so we've got some good questions, and I want to dig right in and get started on, okay? So I had a few that came in before I started. These were posted in my Facebook group, right? So let me knock those out. And I see already there's some people loading some good questions in here. I know KZ was in early, had some questions. Mark's got some questions. There's some other stuff here. So keep your questions coming. You know that we get through usually it's about 50 questions or so on each TogChat that we managed to get through. And by the way, a little update for you. I know that a lot of times you can't watch it live or you want to be here and you don't get to. And then I also know that a lot of times you just don't have 90 minutes to watch the whole thing. And guess what? That's okay. Believe me, I would much rather have you out taking pictures than, stressing about watching me for 90 minutes. So here's something that I started doing. Let me just click back over here to a web browser, and I want to show you guys. I'm going to go back out to the homepage on my channel. We've done this for the last 3 or 4 TogChats that are up, and we'll be doing it going forward. So let me just click on last week's here really quick, and I want to stop it from playing, and we definitely don't need the commercial. But if you miss the show, and if you at least want to make sure that you haven't missed like anything that's going to be really helpful to you, make sure that you check the description of the video. Give me like 48 hours after each TogChat, right? And you'll be able to read the questions that I answered and click on the little time code, and that will take you directly to the part in the video, in the show, where I answer that question. So I have an assistant now that's doing that for me each week. For those of you that really love to know the intricacies of how do we do that stuff, we actually use an automated service that listens to the video feed, creates basically a text, a document of everything that I say for the next 90 minutes. And then I have an assistant who sits down takes her about 2 hours, and she goes through and finds all the questions, basically types them out, does some grammatical correcting, because oftentimes the way that I speak doesn't read particularly well. Shocker, right? And then we post them. So that's going to be an ongoing thing, makes it a little bit easier, because again, my goal is not really to have you sit here for 90 minutes and listen to me. I appreciate that, and I love you for doing it, but I really want you guys to get out there and take pictures, right? So that being said, let's dive in and see what we got going on here. So the early questions that came in today. First one I have here is from Daniel. What are the features of higher-end cameras that you can't live without compared to, say, a lower-end camera being used in manual mode? Just curious, no agenda. So, for me, Daniel, I'll try and give you a couple maybe that would be important to me. But honestly, I want to be really clear. The proper answer to this question is that there is no proper answer, because it's going to vary dramatically from user to user, depending on what you do. For me, features. So first and foremost, I talk about this all the time. I talk about this when I switched from Nikon to Olympus. I talk about this in terms of why I love the Olympus gear, ergonomics. And that's not a feature that most people think of as a feature. Most people are worried about how fast a frame rate does it have, or how much image stabilization. Remember, I learned photography way back in the dark ages where we had to manually deal with everything. So it's great to have convenience features. It's great to have the image stabilization. It's great to have super fast autofocus. But for me, I want a camera that feels good and fits well so that everything is intuitive to me. Beyond that, you can take a decent picture with an iPhone. You can take a decent picture with a cheap camera. I've showed you guys on the last couple of weeks, how when I go out and walk the dogs with that, I take the Olympus TG6 with me now. It used to be the TG5, the little red camera that I showed off a few weeks back. I love that camera. I love its simplicity because It allows me to kind of use it in essentially like a program, don't think about anything mode. And it also allows me to go ahead and manipulate and use it in more of a manual mode. And I can do macro with it and I can do all that kind of stuff. So I don't have like I don't have a hard set of features that like I have to have. I want a camera that is capable of that is capable of taking great images, meaning providing I do my job, it's going to do quality work. The number of megapixels and the dynamic range that I get with my Olympus cameras is more than adequate for what I need. Beyond that, I think that probably the other big feature for me is the glass. What lenses are available? Am I able to purchase lenses preferably made by the manufacturer? Because even as a Nikon guy, I prefer Nikon lenses with the one exception of that Tokina 100 millimeter, which I use for my headshots. But, I prefer to use lenses that are designed or engineered and designed and built for the camera. So that's another important thing to me. Do they have a great selection? And Olympus has an amazing set of lenses, both in the Pro line lenses and also in the regular premium lenses. Really an outstanding selection. So those would be the big ones for me, Daniel. I have a feeling that's kind of not exactly what you were looking for. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to dodge your question, but honestly, that's it. Beyond that, if the camera's got, ISO and shutter speed and aperture, I'm good to go. There's a way to solve the problem. Okay. All right. Next up on the question list came in early. This was a long one, okay? From Maddie. His, it's part statement, part question Maddie has here. It says, "Hi, Joe. I took the jump to Olympus and Micro Four Thirds. Welcome to the dark side, Maddie." He got the EM10 Mark II with the 14 to 42 kit lens, and he's really impressed so far. He's waiting on his 40 to 150 to be delivered. He bought them both secondhand, which, not enough people consider used gear. I'm just saying, right? Obviously, Olympus and any other camera manufacturer would love me to say, buy new. But gear that has been well taken care of, can save you a ton of money. Just can. So he says it's amazing some of the features and tools that are there. He loves the live time, which again is an Olympus feature. It's basically a time exposure where you can watch the image develop, kind of like the live composite you guys have seen me do, but it's different. It's a time exposure, but you watch the image develop in your live view. Okay. He's going to play with a live composite, which is what you've seen me do in the videos after watching my video of me doing it on stage. He says it would be great to hear any tips, tricks, or DIY ideas that you have for light painting in general, apart from the mandatory lightsaber sounds and Star Wars theme being in the background when using the light wand. The picture was definitely awesome and inspired him to have an experiment. Well, first of all, Maddie, thank you. So for those of you that maybe don't know what picture that he's talking about, that would mean that you haven't been watching all of the videos. But the picture that he is referring to, I'll switch back over here. This is the shot. I'm going to go ahead and take his question off the screen. So this is a shot that I did out in Las Vegas. I did this on stage at WPPI there. I'll take the top mask off. So there's the whole thing. Okay. And so that's done with the Olympus Live Composite, where essentially I'm building the background as I'm doing the shot. So that being said, tips, DIY stuff. I mean, gosh, honestly, Maddie, not to sound corny. Okay, let me get his question back up on the screen here. Not to sound corny, but I think the biggest tip that I would recommend to you is expect to kind of suck at it the first time you try it, and expect to need to experiment. And do experiment. Understand that you could work with almost any kind of light source. Like obviously you guys saw that I worked with the Savage Universal, the LED light wand, which by the way is amazing. But you can work with a little flashlight. When I do my live demos, I didn't do this on stage in that video, but a lot of time when I do the camera store demos, when I'm doing the live composite, after I've done something with the light wand and really dramatic, I'll go ahead and I'll pick up my phone and say, I haven't checked Instagram for a while, and I'll just randomly find a kind of a bright picture in Instagram, and it could literally be anything, and not necessarily a good picture, like, there's two pretty girls in a bikini on the beach, right? So I'll grab something like that, and then I'll start a second live composite, and I'll go around, and I'll just wave the phone behind my subject and paint, and when it's all said and done, it looks like smoke. that is just floating all around my subject's head. So you can use any kind of light source. So on the DIY side of it, Maddie, it's just anything that creates light, it's going to work. The other thing is if you're going to do them the way that I do them, so for the sake of really showing off the technique and how it works, I do it on a stage and I do it with all the lights on in the room. Like I'm not doing it in the dark. So that being said, remember that I have to select an aperture that is going to allow me to not record the ambient light in the scene. So pretty much all the live composites that you see me do, and this doesn't mean that you have to do every live composite this way, but if you're going to do it with lots of ambient light, remember, I've done them on a stage with stage lights and in a convention center, right? And I've done them in classrooms and I've done them in stores. You have to override the ambient light. So to do that, I'm shooting almost all of mine at f/16, f/22, etc. Okay? So do factor that in, that sometimes you've got to find that right balance in that regard. But other than that, Maddie, experiment. That's honestly the best thing you can do is just experiment, try different things, go from there. Okay? All right. Next up from Germano, have you had any of your photos stolen? How do you avoid this without putting on watermarks? How do you protect your photos on the net? So, and I also saw a question go by already tonight. Let me just go back and find it, and let's try and deal with these all at once. And of course, now I'm not going to find it, but somebody tonight already asked me about watermarks or why I don't like watermarks. I saw it go by. Am I going to be able to find it now? Gosh, probably not. I'll wind up finding it later, but I thought I would go ahead and try and deal with that all at once. So, Germano, have I had photos stolen? So technically, yes. Stolen and like printed in a magazine or stolen and used for advertising? No. Stolen by some idiot who thought that it would be a good idea to take one of my pictures and put it like on his profile or his website and say, look what I did, so that he could get people to come and shoot with him? Yes. I'll go ahead and I'll share how I deal with that in a minute. You will get a kick out of it. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I'll share it. I'll own it, okay? But how do you protect your photos on the net? How do you avoid this without putting watermarks? So let's start with a couple of facts, okay? Fact number one, Germano. If you are afraid of having something stolen or copied or lifted off your website or your social media and posted elsewhere, don't put it on the internet, period. Watermarks are not the solution. Google has already created an AI that will remove a watermark. With a little bit of effort and time, I can take any watermark that you're going to give me and I can go into Photoshop and I can remove that watermark. Why would I do that when Google created an AI that does it, but still it can be done, right? So the simple rule of thumb that you have to understand is if you don't want it taken or copied, don't put it on the internet. So that's statement number one, Germano. Statement number two, I will point out to you that the most successful photographers in the world do not place watermarks on their images. How do they get away with that? It's really easy. They have busted their butts to create work of a caliber that is identifiable, that people recognize. So it would be extremely difficult for someone to take their work. Okay? Now, Joe Newman just added in the chat room here, Copyright Office. Well, unfortunately, Joe, that doesn't actually work for everyone because, number one, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Germano is not here in the United States, for starters. Number two, also understand that in the United States, having copyright on your images is provided to you the moment you go click. You are the copyright owner. Boom, your image is copyrighted. You do not have to put the copyright mark on it. You do not have to state that it's copyrighted, and you do not have to pay the money and file that copyright with the Library of Congress. the benefit that you derive by filing the image, and this, of course, is only for Americans, but the benefit that you derive by filing the image with the Library of Congress is that you then have the legal right to go to court and be awarded damages. Without a copyright on file, it is very difficult to be able to get a court to award you damages having not filed a copyright. So, but that doesn't prevent people from stealing it, right? So, and I'm mincing words here, but let's be clear about how the law works, okay? The question is, how do you prevent your photos from being stolen? You don't put them on the internet. That's how you prevent your photos from being stolen, okay? But the reality of it is, let's be practical here. I know that there are probably people here that are going to say, well, I've had my picture taken, and I've had my picture taken. Everybody's got this horror story. I've got horror stories too. But you know what? None of them are horror stories, and here's why. They're not really horror stories. They were annoying at the moment. At the moment that it happened, they infuriated me. That's why I will go ahead and I will own up to how I dealt with it. But the fact of the matter is, none of the times that happened, did it cause my business any damage? Did it cause my brand any damage? Did it cost me any money? It didn't. It simply didn't. It just ticked me off. In other words, it triggered testosterone and it made me angry. But it didn't do any damage. And ironically, the images that usually got stolen weren't even my best images. So it's like these people were stupid. They didn't even have the common sense or the good taste to take the best stuff, right? So, if you had a situation a la the Tony Northrup videos and debacles where, he went after a company and sued them because they were using advertising, that's completely different. But again, you go after them in court, boom, done, right? So the situations that I dealt with, more than once, probably in the last 20 years in the digital realm, probably happened to me 4 or 5 times total. Has not happened to me in almost a decade. But what happened was social media, somebody lifted an image and either posted it on their social media, Facebook to be particular, or in one case I did have somebody post an image on that modeling website, Model Mayhem. And on 2 occasions, I had somebody grab an image. I don't know if they took it directly off my website or off of social media, but it wound up on their photography website. So I am not a litigious person. I've had conversations here before. In fact, I know my buddy Nick is here. He's heard me say this many times. I just don't have the patience for dealing with all of that stuff. So whenever possible, I am going to avoid that kind of crap. So the good part of it is in the year 2000, the United States created the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which also is a set of guidelines. And Nick will probably correct me because he is an attorney. But so I'm going to talk at the 50,000-foot view and give you the generalization. I will tell you this right now. So I will pause since I know Nick is here and there may be other lawyers here. Do not take your legal advice from some guy on YouTube. Okay? There's the disclaimer. But I'm telling you how I deal with this, right? So I can speak as an authority to what I do. So that being said, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, most of the social media companies abide by those laws and those guidelines aggressively. Okay, they all abide by them for the most part, but most of them do it pretty aggressively, meaning they're pretty swift to take action. And it's pretty simple to file a complaint and have something removed. So in the situations with social media, all I did was simply file the complaint, boom, it was gone in no time. And in fact, in several cases, my complaint led the website to realize that this person was taking stuff from all over the place and their accounts were shut down. Done. Rightfully so, because they were breaking the rules. Okay. In the cases where I found the images on somebody's website, I had a little system that I used. So I knew that if I couldn't get them to remove the photo, I could contact the company who hosts their website, because those companies like GoDaddy or Format.com or Squarespace and all those, most of them also abide by the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. However, they're not quite as aggressive at how fast and how quickly and how simple they make the process, but they abide by it. So that was my backup plan, because I knew that it would require a lot more effort than simply filing a takedown notice on Facebook or a takedown notice on Instagram, right? So what I would do, since this was on the person's website and they were advertising and marketing themselves for business, is I would work with the understanding that most photographers, the phone number that they advertise on their website is their cell phone. And I would wait until about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night or 1 a.m. in the morning, their time, and I would call their cell phone. And the good part of it is if they were married, they were probably in bed with a spouse who would hear the phone. And when they were dumb enough to grab and answer the phone, the spouse, of course, is sitting there next to them saying, "Who's that? What's that? What's going on at this time in the morning?" And I would introduce myself and say, "Hi, my name's Joe Edelman. You probably have heard of me or know me because you have one of my photos on your website." And every now and then you would get, the idiot that would be like, "I don't know what you're talking about," right? But for the most part, they would be like, "Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'll take it down. I'll take it down right away." And I literally could go to their website at that point. They'd hang up. I'd go to their website, refresh the page once or twice, and the picture is gone. Problem solved. Done. It was easy. I didn't have to argue with them. I didn't have to fight with them. I didn't have to do name calling. I didn't have to bitch with them. Didn't have to pay a lawyer. Took me 10 minutes to make a phone call. Done. Okay? And it was always most effective. I could always tell if they had a spouse nearby, they were the ones that were going to deal with it the quickest because the spouse, of course, was going to kick them in the ass like, "What the hell were you thinking? Why would you do something so stupid?" Right? So, problem solved. Boom. Never had a problem. Always got stuff resolved that way. Now, was I lucky? Let's be fair. Yeah, I was lucky. But, I work with a philosophy that even the people that were dumb enough to do that, they did it out of ignorance and they did it out of poor judgment. Who here has never done something out of poor judgment? I mean, really? Okay. So, Nick, hey, Joe, there's nothing wrong with paying a lawyer. I know, Nick, trust me, man. I want you to succeed and make a good living, but you guys are kind of expensive. Duke, how you doing, man? It's been a while. So anyway, so that's my take, right? So obviously, back to the disclaimer. Do not take your legal advice from a guy on YouTube, right? But that being said, there are ways around it. There's always another way to deal with it. So now, Germano, I still didn't really answer your question. The last question was, how do you protect your photos on the net? So there's a couple things. Number one, I do stand by what I explained about the photographers that you admire. The greatest photographers in the world don't use watermarks. So that ought to tell you something. Get your head out of your butt. Get off of YouTube. Pick up the damn camera. Work. Build your craft. Push yourself. Drive. Do the job to get your work to the point that people know it's yours. Period. Right? So that's step one. Step two, I saw a couple people, Casey said micro watermark. Spinning Wheel said Tinai. I don't know if that's maybe a particular program, but there are companies that do what's referred to as digital watermarking. Digital watermarking is basically embedding code into the JPEG file that goes online, right? So that if the image winds up on the web somewhere, it can be tracked. Now, the problem of it is most of those programs have limitations, i.e., Facebook, Instagram, they tend to strip out all the metadata. So it's really hard for them to embed codes in there, all right? The other way you protect your images on the net, last piece, Germano, is size them properly. I talk about this in my social media and marketing for photographers videos, so please check them out. If you're uploading full res files to Facebook, to Instagram, even to your website, you're an idiot. Like, seriously, that's stupid. It's stupid for so many reasons. One, it's just clueless, right? So just doing something and assuming it's okay is not the reason to go do it. And no, your pictures do not look better anywhere on the internet because you're uploading full res files. They just don't, right? So all you can see and resolve in a web browser is 72 DPI. So number one, there's no reason to go over 72 DPI. Number two, on all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, even LinkedIn, if you make your files too big, they're going to recompress and resize your files, meaning taking the control away from you and mandatorily applying compression algorithms to your images. You do not want that to happen. So you size your files appropriately for the website that they are going on. If you don't know how to do that, if you don't know what that's all about, one, watch the videos. Here, I'll switch the screen over again. Let's go back to my YouTube channel on the, here, let's hit back, sorry. On the little magnifying glass that's on my channel, not the search bar up top, but the little magnifying glass. What you want to do is just type in social media. I'll give you the link here in 1 second, but just in case you're watching this, social media part 1 and social media part 2. I'm going to paste the link in for social media part 1 into the chat window, okay? And watch those 2 videos, and I talk about that there. The other option, and actually James Parrish just asked the question here, and I apologize you can't see it because I'm on a white background, but what is the address for my new education site? My new education site is called togknowledge.com, and if you become a member at togknowledge.com, which you can do for as little as $2 a month, by the way, so it's $24 a year to gain more access to education and to me, okay, to help you specifically. If you join, there is an always updated social media image size spreadsheet that is available to all members at all levels. You save it into your Google Drive, and as long as you leave it in your Google Drive, anytime that I update new information into that document, it automatically updates your copy so that you always have the newest and the latest specifications for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, all the social media sites. Constantly updated throughout the year. Anytime there's a change, I make sure that that information goes in there, and that way you have the newest information also, okay? So the website address for that, let me go ahead and put that in the chat window also so that you guys have it. Right there is togknowledge.com, okay? KZ says, well, you could Playboy cover it, like Playboy used to have like the bunny somewhere in every picture. Yeah, you know, KZ, you could do that, but again, there's really no value to doing it, right? The great part about digital files is they're time-stamped, okay? So as long as you can show that you've got the original, you know, I've had issues with my logo and my tagline, the I Shoot People. So now this is not copyright. This is service mark and trademarks, right? But literally about 5 years ago, I received a cease and desist letter from an attorney who was representing a photographer in San Francisco. This photographer in San Francisco, and I honestly do not remember the young man's name. He was a young guy, and I felt really bad for him because he spent a lot of money with this attorney. And this attorney was an idiot. No offense, Nick, but this guy was, right? So what happened was they sent me the cease and desist letter because this attorney had helped this photographer to the tune of about $5,000, had helped him file for a service mark that included the phrase, I shoot people. But the fact of the matter is, you can't trademark that phrase. That phrase is a grouping of words that's been used for decades and decades and decades, long before the internet, actually, okay? But what you can do, in the case of this photographer, his logo design was a pistol with a lens on the end of it. And underneath it, it said, I shoot people. And he was a music photographer. He photographed like rap musicians and he, you know, was into the whole music scene and that. Really, actually great photography. So, you know, this attorney, obviously this guy then found my website and the photographer found it and told the attorney. So the attorney sends me the cease and desist letter. Well, again, you know, don't take your legal advice from some guy you found on YouTube, okay? But I know enough to understand the basics of the law. I knew that I had been using that tagline with my bullseye logo since the year 2000 on the internet. And the Internet Wayback Machine, the Internet Archives that are owned by Amazon, can prove that, right? So it's not even my word for it. It's archived publicly on the internet, which means that this attorney could have found that information before he filed the service mark for this young man. So I simply wrote back to the attorney, which is who sent me the letter, and copied the young photographer and said, you know what? I will not cease and desist. You can't make me cease and desist. You've got it all wrong. And I provided proof that I had indeed been using that tagline with my bullseye since the year 2000. The fact is, I had been using it long before the year 2000, but not on the internet. So I was able to prove all the way back to 2000. This guy had been using it for about 2 years. So, I had like a good 12 or 14 years on him, okay, at the time. So, needless to say, it was the last I ever heard from because there was no debate, no fight. The young man actually reached out to me about 3 weeks later and apologized and said, I feel like an idiot. This guy sold me up the river and I spent a ton of money. And now that I've done some research, I've realized that I could have done everything he did for me for a couple $100 myself. And I spent like $5,000. So, that being said, now let me come full circle since I've been kind of dumping on lawyers, right? If you have legitimate legal concerns, here's my sincere advice. Refer to a lawyer. But, the big but, do your own research. I started my career as a photojournalist working for newspapers. Any newspaper reporter understands that a good journalist never asks a question that they don't already know the answer to. So for me, if I'm going to go to an attorney with a set of questions, I'm going to do my research first so that I have an agenda of the questions I want to ask and I have an expectation of what those answers should be. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to see what their advice is to see if it confirms my own research. If it confirms it, bingo, life is good, still money well spent. If it contradicts it, then that says to me, I need to do more research and or get a second opinion for what that attorney is telling me so that I have the confidence that I'm not putting myself at risk. Because just because, in all due fairness, just because a person is an attorney doesn't mean that, okay, doesn't mean that's going to make it right, okay? So anyway, that's basically the kind of stuff you're dealing with. Nick added here, but the older, wiser Joe wouldn't call in the middle of the night anymore. Many states have telephone harassment laws, so danger Will Robinson. Yeah, hey, look, Nick, I actually probably would still call, but again, I'm not harassing people. I'm just, it's all open to interpretation. You're right, and that's, the attorney's advice. The good part is, here's the good news. It hasn't happened to me in ages. And here's why, gang. The overwhelming majority of people are not looking to rip you off. The overwhelming majority of people are not looking to scam people. The overwhelming majority of people that wind up stealing pictures, it's poor judgment. It's just simply poor judgment. Everybody deserves a break. So reach out and be honest and be sincere. Don't let the testosterone kick in and start calling names and you a-hole, whatever, and this and that. And they're like, why? What do you gain? You don't gain anything there, right? Have a civilized conversation. And keep in mind, once again, that even without calling these people or emailing or messaging or whatever, you are protected by the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And most of these companies abide by it. So they have a process. If you follow the process, believe me, I've had stuff that's been reposted without my permission on Instagram on profiles that I do not want it reposted on. So I don't consider that stolen because it is a thing to repost something on Instagram. But I don't want my work reposted on something that I do not approve of, right? So that's really kind of the equivalent of stealing it because they're stealing my imagery and my name and putting it in their profile. I've had that happen. So I left that out before. I've had that happen probably 10 or 11 times in the last year, actually. Every single time. It took me 3 minutes to file the complaint, and within 15 minutes, the post was gone. Done. So is it an inconvenience? Yes. But do I need to go to court over that? Did those people cost me money? Did they damage my brand irreparably? Yada, yada, yada. No, they simply didn't. So that's basically, that's basically the way I approach it. Troy, thank you so much for the super chat. Okay. So, all right. Let's move on from this. That was a really long answer. So I got 2 more quick ones here that came in early, and then we'll get those. So from James, how do you make people comfortable walking through your house and upstairs to my office and photography studio? James, that is a topic that I am very familiar with. It's like, hey, come shoot in my basement. Couple of things, James. Number one, there's no reason to feel that that's bad or inappropriate or that you should be ashamed of that unless you have inappropriate intentions or you're doing something bad. So that being said, the first part of your answer, the solution to your problem is presentation. It's your attitude, your tone. The second is be very forthright, be very honest, right? Third, build a portfolio that shows you are sincere. Build a portfolio that shows the quality of work that you do. Make it readily available so people can see. It's like, my God, this guy's work is great. Okay, I'll shoot in his house because I would love to have this kind of imagery. So you guys know that you all know that I just signed a lease on a new studio space. I refer to it as Studio 2 because I'm keeping both studios. This studio is not going away, right? I'll still be using this studio to shoot in also. But I'm really excited about the new space. It's bigger. I'm going to be able to teach workshops there. So when I have people come here, you know that I also have that YouTube video that I did about my home studio. So when I send them the confirmation email, I include a link to say, hey, we're going to be shooting in my home studio. Here's a link so that you can see what it looks like. That way they see, hey, this is like a real studio space. Now I get it. Before you start yelling at the screen, I get it. A lot of you don't have that luxury to be able to dedicate a room in your house. Okay? Nick, thank you so much, man. After me giving lawyers grief, you're giving me a super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I totally realize that a lot of you don't have the luxury of being able to dedicate space in your house, that oftentimes that space that you're shooting in is your living room where you're pushing stuff out of the way or that. Like, I get it. Like, I totally get it, okay? Take some behind the scenes pictures. Literally, I'm not kidding. Like, when you shoot the next time, take some behind the scenes pictures that show your setup in your house. Tidy things up a little bit, right? So that it doesn't look ghetto. Shooting in your house is not ghetto, gang. It doesn't matter where you shoot. What matters is the end result. But yeah, like if your house looks trashed, okay, that's kind of ghetto. So tidy up, make the place look decent, and then show people, all right, it's like, yeah, this is how I work. This is my space. But look at what I'm creating, right? And as long as you're honest with me, I swear to you, in all the years that I have worked in a home studio, which now, between this house and my previous house, going on 11 years since I got rid of my big studio, I have never had a client balk about coming to my home to shoot. And that is because, and when I say client, it could be a young girl, it could be a whatever, okay? I've never had a problem. But I have always been totally upfront. This is where my studio space is. This is where I do my work. This is how I work. This is where you'll be, period, okay? So, again, that's the best answer I can give you, is just be really, really honest with people, okay? The more, and it's just like when you're giving models direction, James, the more that you behave awkward because you feel something's awkward, the more that it looks awkward, feels awkward, etc. So that's honestly, how I would describe that, okay? And then the last one I have from my Facebook group here, from Jonas. Last question from the Facebook group, and then we'll get into the stuff here for the live stream. How does anyone combat nerves? Today I had a last-minute staff shoot at a care home. It was an easy 12 people and the boss, etc. But why am I always nervous, even though they wouldn't know that? Any tips to relax? I scouted the location the day before, set my camera settings close to what I needed, and I still didn't sleep well. Do the nerves ever end? Is it just confidence in my own ability? So, Jonas, this is actually a great question, and legitimately it is, because I will be very honest with you. A couple of years ago, if you would have asked me that question, my gut response would have been to say, grow up, toughen up, suck it up. What's the big deal? If you're doing good work, you shouldn't have an issue. I've learned a lot of things in the meantime. And interestingly enough, about a year ago, actually almost 2 years ago now, I apologize, when I was teaching the creativity course that I taught at the college, it was the last semester that I taught it, I did a panel discussion for my class where I had people from 3 different career paths come in, and we had a panel discussion about creativity and how they use creativity in their jobs. Only one of these 3 people was a photographer. He happened to be a gentleman whose work I have always been in awe of. I first met him probably 20 years ago now when he was working for a newspaper, and he was an incredible newspaper photographer. He was also a victim of downsizing at that newspaper. And I lost track of him for a couple years in the middle. And then I stumbled on his website one day and found out that he was shooting weddings. And my first response was to kind of feel sorry for him. It's like, oh, poor guy's doing weddings. And then I saw his weddings. And I was like, oh my God, his weddings were amazing. And I realized after looking through his website and reading some of his marketing material, not only was he shooting weddings, he was shooting top dollar weddings. He was making big bank on weddings. So when he came to my class, he arrived a little bit early, which I was really thrilled because I hadn't talked with him actually in a very long time. And we were catching up. And number one, I felt really good because I found out he was loving what he was doing, et cetera, et cetera. But he made a statement that really caught me off guard. Now, keep in mind, this was a guy that was a newspaper photographer. As a newspaper photographer, you run into other people's lives at the extremes, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And for most newspaper photographers, that's what drives you. That's what makes you get up in the morning, right? And he told me very honestly that while he loves weddings, and he actually enjoys the selling part of weddings, which is why I avoid weddings, but he told me honestly that every single wedding he does, he winds up in the bathroom throwing up before he leaves for the wedding out of nerves. And I was like dumbfounded. I'm like, come on, man. You're kidding me. Like, why? Because I know some of the stories that this guy covered and some of the situations that he found himself in as a newspaper photographer. And his answer was really very sincere and very straightforward. He said, it's because I'm about to go and take on the responsibility of photographing the most important day of this couple's life. And I'm scared to death that I will screw it up. And that fear motivates me. That fear motivates me all day. And he said, honestly, he says, I've come to realize that the day that I don't throw up is the day that I need to stopping doing weddings. Because I've gotten over that fear, which means I don't respect the importance of the day. So, I think what you are looking for, Jonas, is you're looking to find a balance, right? That's really what you've got to do here is get the balance between not caring and, and not letting that anxiety or that fear shut you down, okay? So the fact that you're nervous and you want to get it right, that's great. If you're letting that impair you, that's not great. You mentioned that your clients can't tell and don't know. Then I would say to you, the fact that you don't sleep very well the night before, maybe you need to have a glass of wine or take a sleeping pill. But the fact that you struggle because you're nervous and you're worried about the next day, honestly, I think that's really healthy. And I think that really helps you. So again, all good things in moderation, right? As long as it's not completely making you shut down and incapable of taking great images, then I don't think it's particularly a problem. That would be my response. Okay? All right. So my next question from DMAC here. He's asking, Joe, do you insure your home studio separate from your home insurance? My home studio, I don't currently. I have kind of like an additional rider for some additional liability insurance. My gear insurance, I get through PPA. Part of the reason why, DMAC, though, just to be clear, that I don't do anything particularly separate or that is I'm not doing client work here. The work that I do here is for YouTube. It's for you guys. I'm not bringing clients in. When I bring a model in, the model's not paying me anymore, right? So I'm shooting for Olympus, for tutorials, for educational purposes, etc. If I was conducting business in that way, then I would maintain, a separate policy. But that's not a need for me. Okay. All right. So scrolling back up here now, and we still got some time here, guys. So go ahead and type some questions in. There's some good ones, but I'm going to get back here and catch up with these ones that I missed. So from Gregory Hauser, next question. Why should I use a metal or collapsible beauty dish over my 36-inch Westcott Rapid Box XL? I don't know, Gregory. Why should you? Did somebody tell you that you should? if you're kind of asking me what's the difference, well, it's a different kind of light, right? So actually a metal beauty dish in most cases is going to give you very different light than the collapsible beauty dishes do. And the collapsible beauty dishes tend to give you different light than the 36-inch Westcott, depending upon the size of the collapsible beauty dish. If you are happy with the light that you are getting from your 36-inch Westcott Rapid Box XL, then I would tell you there is no reason to use any of those, okay? The metal beauty dishes tend to have rather fast light fall off, but again, that depends on the placement, etc. The differences are subtle, very, very subtle. But, do you need to use one over the other? No, not at all. In fact, I haven't used my metal beauty dishes probably in a year and a half now. I just haven't had a need where I felt, oh, this is going to give me something that I really want. And I want to be clear about that statement. I go through phases. Where it's kind of like, I'll pick up a modifier, I'll put it on the light, I'll do a shot, and I'll just be really happy with the way the light came together that day. And then that kind of puts me in a groove with that light. And I'll run that modifier for months until I decide I try something else. And it doesn't mean that every picture looks the same. It just means like, yeah, I'm kind of grooving with that modifier and I'm liking what it's doing. Boom. And I work with that. As I've shown you guys in videos, I can take a, small, simple shoot-through umbrella and by putting it close enough to the subject, make the lighting look exactly like what you get out of a beauty dish. Same with taking a mag sphere for mag mod, flipping it upside down and shining the light through it and creating beauty dish type lighting, right? So if you really understand how the inverse square law works, the modifiers are just a tool. It's like buying one hammer over the other, whatever, one screwdriver over the other. Which one do you like working with better? But they're all going to do the same job if you use them accordingly. So I kind of almost liken it to like, how I talk about high-speed sync and that. It's not that high-speed sync is bad. High-speed sync is a convenience feature. It's foolish, though, to spend the money for the feature until you really understand what it's doing and how it's doing it, meaning learn how to do it without high-speed sync first, and then use the high-speed sync for the convenience of the feature. Most people read on YouTube, high-speed sync, and they run out and they spend extra money for high-speed sync because they think that's the right way to go, even though they don't really understand what it's doing for them other than overpowering the sun at noon, right? Well, that's just a foolish way to invest your money and to buy equipment. It's not really helping you take great images. It's just helping you be a zombie and waste a lot of money. That's all it's really doing, okay? All right, so scrolling back up here, see what we got. And I know there's a bunch that went by. Here we go. All right, Alexander's got a question here. Let's see. Joe, can you advise me on trying to find a position for a beauty dish to minimize expression marks? I'm having some kind of trouble with, I don't know if it's the hard light, but I just can't get it right. Well, yeah, Alexander. So if you've got a person that's got a lot of detail in their face because they're a person of age or maturity, I don't know why you would use a beauty dish if you don't want to accentuate those lines, because that's exactly what the beauty dish is going to do. It's going to accentuate those lines. So my advice to you would be scrap the beauty dish. Folks, you got to understand, a beauty dish does not create beautiful light. It doesn't. Beauty dishes create very, very harsh light. They only create beautiful light in the hands of a master. Seriously, and I'm not calling myself a master. I just mean that, like, look, if you're going to buy a beauty dish, you need to really, really practice and experiment and grow to understand how to get the best light out of it. You don't just like buy a beauty dish, stick it on your on a light and stick it up above somebody and poof, have beautiful light. Nah, it's not quite like that, right? But no, I would definitely, like for me, even if for like a self-portrait for myself, no way in the world I would ever use a beauty dish. I would age like 15 years just by putting a beauty dish on. So when I do my self-portraits, it's a nice, big, soft modifier at a decent distance so that I'm filling in all those lines and creases and wrinkles. So, yeah. I would just suggest that you're using the wrong modifier for what you're trying to accomplish based on that question. So, Bill Jolly, nice to see you, Bill. How you doing? So, let's see here. Scrolling up. All right. And Pedro's got a question, but you didn't tell me the question, Pedro, so you got to fill in some more information. He says, "Hi, Joe. Please, I have a little problem with my raw files. I frequently have a lot of problems with my raw files, but you got to tell me a little bit more, Pedro, and I'll try and help you out. Because and if you did, I apologize, but I am not seeing like the rest of that or the follow up to that. So yeah, so tell me a little bit more about what it is that you are having an issue with, okay? And I'll try and help you out there. Darko, I saw your comment. So you had a great week shooting. Awesome. What did you shoot? I hope it was something fun. So let's see. Scrolling back up to those questions again. Go ahead, guys. You can type in more questions. I know I got a bunch here, but I think we're gonna have enough time for some more. Okay. Let's see. Chaz Madge, I saw your statement about the white text over the white background thing here. Yeah, good point. I'll fix it for next week. But yeah, at the same time you were typing that, I noticed that the white text plan was not working. So I need to tweak the formatting a little bit. But yeah, I saw that and definitely will work on that. Adam, how we doing, gang? So Roderick McLeod, lightsaber sounds and Star Wars theme music. Do you want to get sued by Disney? Because that's how you get sued by it. Yeah. Hey, you know what? They can come after me. Can't bleed a rock. So yeah. And the good part is I didn't do it. Somebody else did it. So I just happened to be the guy on stage. So let's see. Cloud Strife. As a beginner, how would I find groups in my area to learn to shoot with? I'm in LA, but everyone seems to already have groups they like to go out and shoot with. Well, I'm a little confused there, Cloud Strife. You said you want to find groups to shoot with, but everybody already seems to have groups to shoot with. Well, can't you ask to join those groups? So, I mean, there's a couple things, honestly, that I would look up. I would do a Google search for photography meetup groups in LA. In fact, so here, Cloud Strife, I don't know how old you are. So I'm going to choose my words carefully, okay? But that sounds like a millennial or a Generation Z kind of question, okay? It just does. So in Los Angeles. So here, I'm doing a Google search. So first rule of thumb, never do a Google search if you don't know what's going to come up, right? So there, photography groups in Los Angeles meetup. There's like boatload of stuff, man. We got 1,470,000 results, which I'm sure, let's face it, that there's not 1,470,000 photography meetups and groups in LA. But indeed, there is this thing called Google. You spell that Google. Just check it out. That's honestly probably the best way to find something and reach out to these. Most groups, I will tell you this, most good groups and camera clubs, seriously, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but hey, come on, right? That's like an easy question, okay? Most groups, even the meetup groups, will allow you to attend a meeting at no cost. Just check it out, see what you think, see what the people are like, see if, you kind of vibe with it. Also, a lot of them have websites, so, you can look at their websites and get a sense of like, what's the vibe, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, just go online. You'll find a ton of that stuff, okay? Next question here from Diego. Hey, Joe, what is your opinion on using old vintage lenses with adapters on mirrorless or DSLR cameras? Diego, I know a lot of people do it and a lot of people have fun with it. For me, no. Adapter should be a 4-letter word because I always say don't use 4-letter words, right? Part of it is, just to be fair, right? Because I'm not making a statement to say it says, oh my God, adapters are horrible. No. I'm being very honest. I was a photographer back when adapters did suck, like big time sucked, okay? So I just am not a big fan of adapters. I like lenses, as I mentioned earlier, I like lenses that are designed, engineered, manufactured by the manufacturer for the camera, period. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, if you're into the toys and the gadgets, there are a lot of really interesting lens possibilities out there, especially if you don't mind manual focus and setting all your exposure manually. There are some really, really interesting lenses that you can, play around with. So, if that's your thing, go for it. But for me, again, I don't want to have to think about that. At this point, at my age and with my eyes, manual focus, it would be way too slow. I can do it, but way too slow. So for photographing people, that is definitely not a good plan for me, okay? And when it comes to, everything else, no, I'm very, very happy with the fact that the camera does a lot of those things for me now and that I don't have to worry about that. So that would kind of be my my response there. So, okay. All right, let's see here. From Jim Betts, his question is, are there any other, are there any other creators that you follow or check in occasionally on YouTube? Honestly, Jim, no. So I usually keep up with my Tony and Chelsea news from you guys during TogChat. Usually somebody throws some question at me. I follow Manny Ortiz on Instagram, so I usually see his stories go by, so I at least see what piece of gear he's doing a video about on any given week. I just don't have time. You know, you guys may have noticed I haven't done a tutorial in like 2.5 months. I'm not happy about that, but there are things for business that I had to take care of and do that are good opportunities that allow me to keep doing all these things that I'm doing. So, yeah, every bit of free time I have, I've been writing scripts, recording pieces, because I want to get some videos in the can before I start pumping videos back out again. I don't want it to be a tease like, hey, here's a video. You're not going to see one now for another 6 weeks. So yeah, I don't, and not to sound cocky or arrogant, because I swear to you, that is not it. I'm doing my thing, right? And at the end of the day, creatively and intellectually, all I can do is my thing. I can't be somebody else, at least not very well. So I don't want to be one of those people that's like following every move of what the other guy is doing, because then I'm looking over my shoulder. Should I be doing that? Is he getting more views? Did he get more subscribers? Like, that's not why I'm in this. That's not the game that I'm playing. So, yeah, for me, I don't. I don't have the time. And it's not a disrespect thing. I just don't have the time. I would much rather be creating my own content, meeting the people that are following me, teaching them. So that's essentially been, pretty much my approach with all that. Okay. Let's see here. Terry J Photography, his question: I would like to learn a bit more about my new studio. So it's making progress. I mean, I don't have any new images for you this week. So for those of you that weren't here last week, here, I think I have some images that I can put up on the screen here. Yeah, so let me take Terry's question out. So this is the basic space here. Let's get that out of the way, because I don't know why it's not letting me remove the comment, but we'll do it that way. There we go. Okay, this is the basic space. It's in an old warehouse building. Actually, I shouldn't say warehouse, an old factory building. It's called the Cigar Factory, that has been converted into artist lofts. So if you were to walk in there today, there are curtains on the windows that can be removed. Okay. There are some carpets on the floors underneath the desk and underneath where you see the red chair. Right up behind where this light is, where you see my mouse. Actually, you guys can't see my mouse. I'm sorry. Duh. I'm telling you where you see the mouse. You can't see it. So if you look at the stool and then look straight up, there's just like a hanging shop lamp. So between that shop lamp and that silver duck that's behind it, there's about 4 feet in depth. So right in front of that silver duck, tomorrow, actually, I will be hanging a pulley system and seamless backdrops that you change them by lowering them via the pulley system, change the backdrop, and then take it back up and tie it off. It's a system that I used to use in my old studio way back when. It worked out really, really awesome, and it's so basic and so simple. I will show you guys how that works. The internet access was installed on Monday. It looks like it will be fast enough for me to do some live streaming. So if all goes well, next Wednesday, I may do TogChat from there, just so that I can share things a little bit. So I'm literally just going to kind of set the camera up on a tripod and do things kind of a little bit ghetto equipment-wise. But that way I can also move the camera around. It can show you guys a little bit real-time what's going on. And I'm going to start working through a series of videos in there that I may either show during TogChat, but I will post them separately. Kind of each piece of gear that I'm adding into the studio, I want to kind of share with you guys why. What's its purpose? Why do I like it? All that kind of stuff. Because I've been very, very fortunate. I've had some companies reach out that have provided me with some new gadgets that are actually going to be a lot of fun to work with in the studio. So I will be sharing all that. But I did a quick little test shoot in the studio this Tuesday. So it's the first time I actually picked up a camera other than those shots that you just saw, and got a sense of what's it going to be like. Everything I did was natural light because I wanted to see just how does the light fall in there. I tried a couple shots mixing in just one LED light for some fill. It's going to be a very, very fun space. So my next task is to get in there with lights and basically do the same kind of stuff that I normally do. In other words, kind of go through my regular shooting workflow just to get a sense of how I want things set up. But I've got the security cameras installed, so it's got an alarm system in it now. All the electronics and internet stuff is in there, so it's pretty close. I've been in there for at least a couple hours every day, in addition to doing everything else I'm doing. So my schedule lately has been insane. And obviously this weekend I'll be teaching Friday and Saturday. I have the events in Lansdale and Northern Jersey, so I won't get any time in, at that point. But yeah, it's coming along good, and I'm pretty excited about it. So, okay. Ooh, Carlos, you saw my billboard. So they moved the billboard. I think I explained this before for you guys, but Art Pop. So it's here. I'm going to put their link in. In fact, let me just show you this. This is actually kind of cool. So the Art Pop organization, the company that ran the contest, they reached out and asked if they could use my photograph. Whoops. Let me find the website here. Art Pop Street Gallery. That would help if I use the whole website name. They asked if they could use my photograph as their website cover. So when you go to artpopstreetgallery.com now, you actually see my billboard image there. So I'll post this here for you guys to take a look at. So the way they do it, the woman that runs this program, her name is Wendy Hickey. She's from North Carolina. It's an amazing program, and she has negotiated with a lot of the billboard advertising companies around the United States to give her unsold billboard space. So I'm sure you've driven down the highway and you've seen those ads on billboards where it says like your ad here, and it's got a phone number where you can call the billboard company, right? So that's the stuff that they put on billboard spaces that aren't sold. Well, she has gotten these companies to agree to post these pieces of art, to basically bring art to the different communities. And it's awesome. It's an awesome program. And by the way, it's a nonprofit organization. So, it's something that you could donate to, or you could support by entering to have your image on a billboard if the contest runs in a town near you. Okay. So anyway, they are using this, but my billboard in its previous location, a company recently leased that space. So that meant they had to take my billboard down from that billboard, but they have now moved it. And ironically, it's literally about a quarter of a mile from where I live. It's very close, and it's on a major highway. So it actually gets a lot more traffic now. It's kind of funny because if you drive up to it, in other words, like the guys that are actually, that actually change the billboards, that work on them, it's literally sitting in the middle of a junkyard. That's where the billboard is. When Carlos saw it driving down the highway, it's sitting up on top of a hillside, and you don't see any of the junkyard underneath it because you're way below it as you drive by, and it sits up on the top of the hill. But yeah, so I drove up to it this past weekend to be able to take a look. And it's actually like in the middle of a junkyard is where this billboard's sitting. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's still, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't get old. It's neat to see it. So I'm glad you got to see it, Carlos. I will share some new pictures in the near future that show the new location. So, all right. So I know we got some more questions here. Oh, and I still got some good time. Good. So, hey, guys, I got time. Go for it. So let's see. Scrolling on down. All right, Doyle here. His question is, do I have a DIY video to build something similar to a California Sunswatter? No, Doyle, but that would be easy, man. Like, that would be so easy. It's almost not worth doing a video of. I'll tell you why, though. Seriously, I don't think I'm trying to slam you here. Let me switch my screen over. Let me go back to my YouTube channel. Here, what you want to do is go to the YouTube channel, and in the little magnifying glass again, type in reflector holder, okay? And this is the DIY reflector holders right here. this is the concept. So believe me, you don't really need me to do a video for this. You could make one out of PVC piping. So for those of you that don't know what a Sunswatter is, it's basically a huge diffuser. Okay. So all you need, I would probably do it with at least 1 inch PVC pipe. So it's going to have a little bit of weight to it, but so does a Sunswatter, right? So basically make a square and then, stretch the material over it. You could either clamp material over it. If you have a wife, friend, significant other that has a sewing machine, you can have them sew pockets into it so you can make the whole thing collapsible just by taking the PVC apart. In other words, you don't have to glue the PVC together. So yeah, a Sunswatter would be super, super easy to replicate. Really, really easy to replicate. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Okay. Let's see. Troy Hall. Question, did you ever go through a period where you were constantly late or slow in getting shoots done? Well, I've gone through a period, so yes is the short answer, Troy, but not because I was being lazy, because I overextended myself. Like, that's my life right now. Not gonna lie. You guys know there's a lot of videos that I've been working on and talked about, and they're not out yet because life just keeps coming. So it's not that I'm sitting on my butt and vacationing, but I have a bad habit of taking on way too much stuff because I really want to do it and I want to be involved in it. So, yeah, there are times where I'm, behind and slow on getting things done. It happens. You have to really work to minimize that. Every time I find myself in that situation, I kind of kick myself in the butt and realize like, this is not good. It's not helping my business. It doesn't help my brand. But you work through it. And at the end of the day, it's about, be straight with people and provide value. Provide value. If you're going to be successful in this business as a photographer, provide value. If you're not doing that, then yeah, nothing's going to matter. Nothing's going to work. Okay. So, Terry J. Photography's question. I would love to hear your opinion as to why wireless tethering technology is so slow to develop. Well, Terry, actually, I don't know so much it's my opinion. I think this is more a statement of fact. It's not that the wireless tethering technology is slow to develop. There's some great stuff out there. What's slow to develop is the wireless technology. So that's beyond the wireless tethering technology. We've got, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz broadband. We need to go a lot faster. That's what we're waiting on at this point. Once we can go faster, the cameras will provide faster. Like, Olympus has wireless tethering technology built into the EM1X. Again, Olympus doesn't, I'm sorry, I'm not saying this because I'm an ambassador, okay? Olympus doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the innovation they do. They've got wireless tethering built into the camera, but they're limited by the capabilities of wireless technology, right? Which is not something that Olympus develops. So they developed the camera. But things like the Cam Ranger, Camfi, all of those options that are out there, they work great, but they can only work as fast as the wireless technology that's available. So, once we get faster, and I'm not so sure, and this part I don't know. So this now I'm just hypothesizing. I'm not so sure that there's a ton of development happening on faster Wi-Fi, because once we get to 5G technology with the phones and that, 5G technology is supposed to be faster than our current, broadband capabilities. So we're going to reach a point where it's kind of like, well, why do you need it? In that, that's what I keep hearing, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Not an expert on that at all. Okay. So the problem of it is right now the current Wi-Fi, it's just not fast enough. So as it gets faster, then, those types of units will definitely improve and we'll be able to do more with that. Okay. Nick, any old habits from the film days that you just can't shake? Back in the day, I didn't have custom darkroom services, so I did in-camera final crop. Still can't shake that today when I should allow extra room. Yeah, so Nick, that's actually, believe me, that's not a bad habit. There's a lot of people that could really benefit from that habit, but I completely understand. Yes, it sucks when, you realize that you need a 5x7 print and you've cropped, square or rectangle, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a problem. Or you need a square cropping and you didn't leave enough on the sides. That's a pain in the butt. But no, for me at this point, not really. No, I can't say. If I had to print more often, the problem that you described would definitely be a problem that I would deal with for sure. because I used to deal with that problem from time to time back in the day, even with film. But no, there's nothing that I really find gets in my way from, my film habits at this point, other than maybe I tend to be a little bit slow accepting some of the new convenience technology because I'm very comfortable in getting it done without. So that's why I'm not one that rushes out and buys a new piece of technology just because it's a convenience. It's got to be a substantial convenience. It's got to make a big difference for me before I should care. And I also have to have a real need for it. Or is it something that I'm going to do once a year, in which case, why would I spend extra money for that? Taking a few extra seconds and doing it the old way that may take a little bit longer, who cares? So that's where I'm at with the high-speed sync thing, right? It's like I'm not one of those guys that's going to go out and do high-speed sync every time I pick up my camera because that's just boring as hell. So there's no value to me, in that regards. Okay? All right. Next up here, Neil Branch, his question. Cho, do you have or have you ever considered mentoring a live assistant in your studio? I've got a lot of assistants that maybe didn't live through the experience, but yeah, Neil, why are you applying? I do, but I'm extremely picky because most people that come in the door wanting to be an assistant or wanting to be an intern, really what they want to do is they want to be entertained. They want to watch me because they think it's cool. And then they want me to tell them everything that they need to know. And they don't put any effort on their own. I will tell you the last 3 interns that I've had have crashed and burned inside of 2 weeks. And I've made sure that they did. Because I figured out within the first 2 days that they were here, when I would tell them about something they really needed to know on day 1, and they'd come back the next day and I'd say, hey, so what'd you do last night? Did you just look into that? Did you do any research? No. Why? It's like, okay, that's it. Done. Right? You've lost my respect at that point because you're coming here to be entertained, not because you're desperate to learn. So yeah, I set really high standards. When I was a kid and I had mentors and I worked as an assistant, I was taught by my father, respect their time. Never waste their time. And part of the reason why I was fortunate enough to have the mentors that I did is because anytime I asked for help, just like a journalist does, I made sure that I had done as much research as I could without the internet to have an understanding so that I was really looking for clarification, right? There were 3 words that in my childhood people used, and they were somewhat legitimate, but still never acceptable to me because my father was a problem solver. My father ultimately was a problem solver. And those 3 words were, I don't know. So, I don't know meant figure out a solution, find a solution, talk to someone. Today, when an intern or an assistant comes in and in the first day and a half or 2 days worth of conversation, I hear, I don't know, I will jokingly the first time say to them, wow, that's too bad because there's this thing called Google. You spell it Google. You should check it out. When I hear it the second time, I'm a jerk about it, period. Because that just means that they're lazy and they're wasting my time. They want me to entertain them. I have no patience for that. So that being said, Neil, if I haven't scared you away and you're local to Allentown and you realize I'm not going to pay you a damn thing, sure, reach out. Okay, we'll talk. So let's see. Back to the questions here. Jeffrey Bowen's photography. Not a question, but a comment. Don't believe the hype. There's nothing wrong with old equipment. I'm still producing exceptional images with a Tokina 102.8 macro. Hey, man, I told you I love that lens. So, yeah, nothing wrong with old equipment at all. So, I certainly don't disagree with that. Let's see here. Darko. Many people blow their chances. If I could, I would love to mop your floors and watch more, read more, and show you more than I could shoot. Actually, with you, with respect. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Darko, and I hate sounding like an old guy, right? Because the world evolves, right? The world changes. And people just approach things differently today. But for me, I was afraid of people as a kid. I was shy. So, my father, I've told the story on here before where there was a small photo studio about a quarter of a mile from my home where I grew up as a kid. And in the summertime, my father and I would literally walk 3 miles. It wasn't uphill both ways, but it was 3 miles to the one and only Friendly's restaurant in our town to get ice cream. And we do this maybe 2 or 3 nights a week. I'd finish cutting grass because that's how I earned the money for my gear when I was a teenager. And we would go and we would get ice cream. Every time we would walk past this stuff walk past this photo studio and doors open, my father would be like, you need to go in and talk to them. Go in and ask them if you can hang out. Go in and ask them if you could sweep the floors. And I would always be like, okay, yeah, I should, but I didn't have the guts to do it. So finally, probably after 2 summers of him encouraging me to do this, we walked past one evening and the doors open and he's like, he told me again, he's like, you need to go in and talk to them. Like, this is ridiculous. Why won't you talk to them? He's like, come on, the door's open. Let's go. I'll go with you. Well, that was the trigger that I needed. When he said that, I turned the corner and bolted down the sidewalk, empowered, ready to go, ready to talk to whoever happened to be inside that photo studio. I walked through the door. The next thing I heard was the door slam closed behind me. And I turned around and my father was not there because the door was closed. The young guy behind the counter is laughing his ass off because he could, of course, see everything that happened. And he's like, can I help you? And I very clumsily, sounding like, an idiot, was like, I really want to learn photography and I really want to, take pictures. And I was wondering if I could hang out and he's like, sure, come by whenever you want. I was like, well, that was easy. But the cool part of it is that's exactly what I did. And when I came by the first day, which was 2 days later, I came by after school. He was getting ready to do a portrait of a guy, like in a business suit. And I walked in and he's like, okay, go sit over there in the corner and watch. So I didn't say a word, stayed in the corner the whole time. And I was, at the time, I was 13 years old. When the guy left, he, shook the guy's hand. The guy left. He comes back to me. He's like, so what'd you learn? And I told him everything that I saw him do, and I asked him questions because I actually had questions. Why did you do this? What was the point behind that? What was that for? And he looked at me and he said, good questions. And he gave me the answers, and he says, okay, so we need to put this stuff away now. This is how we put it away. This is where we do it. And he started showing me how to help him. And I would come back each day and say, do you want me to do that? Because you already taught me that. And then, is there anything else that I can do? Anything else he could teach me? And that's how I learned. So, again, it's one of those things. It's all about putting in the effort. And I find that a lot of kids today, unfortunately, and I hate saying it. I hate that it happens. I really do. I hate that it happens when there's opportunity and people don't take advantage of it. But I also hate that it means I am old because the world's changing. The world's evolving. People approach things differently. But Google is... Google is there and there's no excuse. And even KZ, your answer, I sorry, man, but that's kind of a lame answer, right? KZ says here, Joe Edelman, true, but Google will give you what it thinks you want that's popular. You're right, but you're also horribly wrong, KZ. And you're also completely missing the point with your response. So let's start with the right but wrong, okay? You're right, Google is going to give you an answer based on what it thinks you want to know. But that's your problem, not Google's problem. Fact of the matter is, Google is incredibly intelligent. Its algorithms are brilliant. The fact of the matter is, most people suck at knowing how to ask questions. And most people will type in one question, and if they don't get the response they want, their result is, didn't get anything, and they give up. Instead of realizing that it may not have been Google's fault, it may have been their fault, and re-asking the question in a different way. Because I'm sorry, I have no problem with Google. I think Google's freaking amazing. I can find whatever I need on Google. And God forbid, I have to use a little bit of common sense, which, that can be painful, right? But I have to use a little bit of common sense, and I can figure out what's the good stuff and what's the bad stuff by simply checking other resources and then, hey, right? So that's, that's the thing there. So anyway, All right, back to questions here. So scrolling back up, Troy, this is a statement, and it's true. Troy, you've had a blessed career, ergo your pay it forward mentality. Yeah, and seriously, look, I'm not looking for pats on the backs. I will say this much about the pay it forward thing, gang. Yes, I am trying to make my living teaching, doing the things that I do. I am blessed to be able to do that. My hope is for all of you. I'm not asking you to do what I do or be who I am. I am asking you to be the best versions of yourself. But understand, the information that you're getting, the guidance that you're getting it for free. So do pass it forward. You don't own it, right? All this photography stuff is not a competition. It's not yours to keep. Not to sound corny, but part of why I do what I want to do is I don't want to kick the bucket and lose all this. Granted, there's other people that know it, but they're not all sharing it. I mean, we talk about our friends, the Northrops, routinely, who are extremely talented and very knowledgeable, but they're not really sharing it. They're not really doing things that benefit the greater good, not like they could. They're doing things that are strongly money motivated. And you know what? They're entitled. I respect that. That's their decision. But I just, take it a little bit of a different approach in that regard. So I'm a big believer, and that's what you should be doing. I don't care what your work is. I don't care what your job is. I don't know what your career path is. That's something that we should all be doing, period. Okay? So let's see here. Chaz Madge, if common sense was common, why isn't there more of it? Yeah, I've heard that line before, and there's not a really good argument for that. So anyway, James from Malaysia. Hey, glad you made it live. I apologize. We're almost done, but I'm glad you're here. So I just want to slide back here. I think there's a couple things that I did miss. I want to try and get all the questions. Let's see. George from Greece is talking about Wi-Fi 6, and indeed, Wi-Fi 6 devices. I've read a little bit about that. I'm not going to lie. I am not an expert on them. I haven't paid a ton of attention. George, I have read essentially what you are saying here, that it's more about multi-device speed. And so it's like bigger pipe as opposed to actually increasing the overall speed of a single device. And that's kind of the challenge. It's one of those things. On one hand, it's frustrating that we don't have high-speed wireless transfer from our cameras yet. But on the other hand, the reality of it is camera companies have to make money, right? I mean, they just do. Let's be fair. I don't care what brand we're talking about. They have to be able to make money. So the thing that we're kind of overlooking here is that how much of their camera buying population actually needs that feature, right? And it is pretty much every camera brand out there. It's a very, very small percentage of their user base that needs that feature. So that's why I'm sure it's not highly, prioritized. So I just noticed a comment here. I just want to touch base on this from Steven. This is back when we were talking about, what do people want to learn and that kind of stuff, everything they need to know to be your competitor. Steven, I've had people come in, and that's clearly been, and this is through the years, that's clearly been their attitude. I will tell you, though, I've never worried about that. I don't have any competitors. I simply don't. I've never looked at it that way. You guys can go talk to my buddy, Manny Ortiz. Manny Ortiz, when he had half the number of subscribers that I did, was trying to debate whether or not he should change his channel, because he had originally started his channel years ago when he was a DJ. And so it had a really weird channel name to it. And he was starting to pick up steam, and everybody was telling him, no, you've got too many subscribers. You've got too many subscribers. Don't do it. You'd be a fool. I told him, Manny, you're gold. People love you. They love your personality. They love your wife. You're putting out great, sincere content. Change it. Get it squared away now. You'll blow past me in no time. I was the only guy that told him you should do it. He finally decided to take my word, and he did it. And within like 6 months, not only did he blow past me, he's up at like 250,000 subscribers right now. And the guy's doing gangbusters. Okay? So do I take the credit for it? No. He did the hard work. I simply gave him an honest opinion, not worrying about him beating me, not worrying about him being a competitor, about realizing that if he's successful, that's good for all photographers on YouTube. It's good for the industry. It benefits everyone, right? So I've honestly, and that's kind of always been my approach, except for, and I've told you guys this here, except for when I worked for newspapers. When I was a kid, because I was a kid then. I was in my early 20s, right? Late teens, early 20s. Yeah, if you would have asked me a photography question back then, I would have sooner put a knife in your back than help you out because you were my competition. And that was the context that I started photography, because in the newspaper business, it's competition. But yeah, there's no real value, to that. So, okay. So anyway, gang, that being said, let's see here. Steve Spittler, you were looking at Matt Granger's and F-Stopper's business video series about running a photography biz. Do I have anything like that? No, Steve, I haven't. And I'll tell you why. I wouldn't recommend either of theirs. And let's be clear, I'm not sniping at Matt Granger. In fact, I got hate mail last week because I dissed on Matt Granger about that Fuji video. Look, I stand by my comments, gang, okay? But here's why I wouldn't pay attention to what Matt Granger has to say about running a photography business. What photography business is he running? He's not. What photography business am I running? I'm not. I have, but I'm not now. What photography business is F-Stoppers running? I'm not, or they're not. I don't even know if they have. I don't know, okay? So they're not the people that you should be listening to build your business. What you should be doing is go take, at your local community college, go take 2 classes. You don't have to go for a degree. You don't need a freaking degree. Go take 2 classes. Business 101. Second one, marketing 101. And during those classes, freaking pay attention. Ask lots of questions. Take lots of notes. Anything that you are hearing from that teacher that you cannot connect to photography, ask the questions. Don't walk out saying, well, they didn't talk about that. Ask the questions. But take a business class. Forget this get-rich-quick crap from photographers that aren't getting rich quick, that aren't doing what they're doing or what they're teaching, okay? I teach the hows and whys behind making photographs. That's what I do. Done. For me to go out and charge you money to teach business, no. I can give you advice based on my experience in business. I do that all the time, but I'm not going to charge money for that because anybody that's going to pay me for that is paying me for the wrong things and not spending their money wisely because I'm not currently running a business. So that's my approach there. All right, gang. So that being said, we are at 92 minutes. So it's 184 minutes if you've been here the whole time before you come back next week. Get out there, pick up the camera, shoot some stuff. But seriously, great set of questions tonight, gang. As always, I really, really appreciate it. I hope to meet some of you this weekend, Friday and Saturday, Lansdale on Friday evening, Saturday, Unique Photo Expo in Northern New Jersey, Fairfield, New Jersey. Hope to see you there. And next week, fingers crossed, I'll do TogChat from the new studio. So, as always, remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.